Hey everybody, welcome to Stand By for Tones and our podcast. Today you got me, Isaac Baker, and your favorite guy, Mr. Sam Schwab.
Hello.
How we doing?
So good. How are you?
I'm not too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ready to tell them what we're doing with life?
Absolutely.
I think this is a pretty exciting one, man, because this is going to be, we're kind of Star Warsing it, going a little bit backwards here, and kind of doing our intro more than anything right now. Then we'll finish off with a little bit of a lesson, you know, but I want them to know us.
Yeah.
I want them to know who we are, why we're doing it, what our lives are like, what we do, all of the fun things. So
all the fun things.
We got a little bit of a story to tell on both our ends, right?
Absolutely.
So
lots of stories.
It'll be good. I mean, like, there's so many things we've done in this last year that are very remarkable more than anything. I think that we've accomplished a lot. You know, this has been kind of a 3-year in the making journey to get where we're at. I mean, lighted studio, nice kind of facility, you know, lots of things. We've done a lot, and a lot of sacrifice, a lot of good times, a lot of, you know, late nights and
a lot of late nights.
And a lot of people hanging out in my house while I'm going to bed.
That's right.
So,
yeah, no, we've, like you said, we've done a ton. We've got lots more coming.
yeah.
But we're, like you said, a little Star Wars. We kind of did this podcast once, but we're redoing it because I'm way too much of a perfectionist and I didn't like how the first one turned out. So we're doing it again, but
Why
that's
not?
okay. So
We have the time.
today we're, again, getting into this podcast stuff. Wanted to just talk to you guys about who we are, what we've been through in life, and and then, like you said, get into some education there on the end of this one. So
Yeah, it'll be good, man. The big thing that I want to, and I'm going to look into the camera for this one to stare at you guys if you're watching via video. Please, if you feel like supporting a small business or a growing business, we have lots of things available, from textbooks to applications to our website to our courses and everything like that. And we want to be able to continue to bring these things to you guys. So if we can get your support, help us grow, do these things. We're fairly well priced, below the industry standard right now for a lot of our stuff. And, you know, we want to, you know, we'll talk about why we do that and, you know, here in a little bit, but I just want you guys to know that we have a book, we have a flight log, we have all these things that are really cool. You can find them on our website. You can find them on Amazon. Anywhere you really kind of look, you can type in the business name. You can type in Isaac or my name in Amazon, and it'll come up. There's so many things that we have that we can offer you guys. And we really want you guys to be prepared for, not only for your tests and quizzes and jobs and everything like that, but for patient care more first and foremost. I mean, like, you know, a certificate is a piece of paper that shows that you can regurgitate information, but we want to make sure that you guys know how to, you know, be able to perform in the field more than anything.
yeah, and actually understand it, right? It's not you just went through a class and to go through the class, but actually went to go learn something.
Yeah.
And I think we've presented stuff in a way that, again, you can actually learn something, take something away from that. You know, we're not afraid to throw our experiences out there, our mistakes, things that we've seen. So, no, absolutely learn from that kind of stuff, and that's the whole goal.
Yeah, I've made so many mistakes, man.
Oh, yeah. No, we all do, and that's part of teaching, is being able to have that experience and being able to say, you know, don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's mistakes are good things. As long as you work in a culture where just culture is an actual thing, where you can not be afraid to bring these things up and, you know, be able to make learning points out of it, and then be able to have enough of a big boy panties on
exactly
to be able to, you know, promote your mistake and help other people learn from it.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest shift in our industry right now is losing some of that nature, where we can take those learning mistakes and promote them in a good, healthy way, because people are so afraid of, you know, getting their feelings hurt. And
they are, and we touched on that on the last podcast a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, and for you, I mean, don't be afraid to take criticism. It's okay.
Yeah.
Learn.
Yes, it is very good. But off that subject, let's talk about us.
I agree, and I think that you should go first.
Oh man.
So tell us about yourself, Mr. Sam.
Okay. So my name is Sam. I was born and raised in Idaho, and I've lived here for pretty much my entire life, just in kind of different cities, and kind of found my home here in South Central Idaho in beautiful Twin Falls. It's been a great place to grow a career, grow a business, continue flying for a really cool agency. Like, there's so many cool things. I kind of started off my life in the fire EMS world, started at a paid volunteer fire service, hated fire, absolutely hated it. And it's not a knock against anybody else. I mean, like, we make our firefighter jokes and things like that. We have to, right? It's just like we make cop jokes and all the things.
Absolutely.
But, I hated running in or like going into a burning. I only did it 2 times in the 5 years that I was with that service because it was just so low volume.
Yeah.
I hated every second of it. But the ambulance stuff is just where I kind of found my jam, found my home. I was an EMT straight out of high school, which I think we kind of talk about in another episode of, learning how to grow and how we had to put up with the 18-year-old straight out of high school and how to groom them and train them and do all the right things. I mean, we're all there. Went to paramedic school in Boise, actually specifically Nampa. Went to College of Western Idaho under the direction of Doug J. and Dexter Hunt, 2 really big industry leaders at the time. They kind of, really took over and got paramedicine into Ada County. I mean, like, that's really what their whole goal was. That started as the Ada County program, turned into the CWI program. Unfortunately, that program's no longer. They got old. They retired. Dexter had a kidney transplant. All the fun things, and there's a lot of growth and really amazing things that came from that program. I feel very lucky that both of my instructors had like 70 years of field experience between the 2 of them. I think Doug's still actually working in like his 70s, and it's like, man, like, you ever gonna give it up? But I don't think he ever will. But I'm very, very blessed in the nature of the education world that I got into. I did a short stint as a system-based hospital educator for a large EMS system. My life just kind of took me in a different pathway, which is completely fine. Things work out the way that they need to, and I wanted to progress my career, and I was kind of stuck. And Monday through Friday was not for me.
Yeah, I feel you there.
Yeah, Monday through Friday is, once you've been in this industry, this is all I've ever known too. I mean, like, I've only ever known shift work, and going to Monday through Friday with a new kid and all these other things was so hard. It was the hardest thing I've probably done in a long time. And so I was just like, I should go fly. Went to a smaller agency out in Nevada. They turned into this massive conglomerate of an agency owned by a big healthcare system, which that sounds like they're all doing really well. I'm very happy for them. And I'm just glad to be home. Yeah. Glad to be back into a 3 aircraft service, and kind of have that opportunity just to walk to work instead of driving hour to 2 hours to work every day. So there's a lot of things. Got a beautiful daughter. Love doing that side of things in my dad life. It's super fun. All the things we get to do: zoos, biking.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you what. Besides work, what do you do outside of work? What do you guys like to do?
What do we like to do? The outside of work side of things it's fun. Like, I do this outside of work a lot, which is not really a job for me because it's fun. Our whole job's fun, but hanging out with the kid, hanging out with a girlfriend. We spend a lot of time together. We go to the zoo. We go biking, we go walking, we go hiking, we camp, we fish, we travel, we do all the things that I wasn't able to do on a Monday through Friday schedule.
Right.
And, I get to live this life with a beautiful, tiny little human that is growing up to be this just kind of badass. I mean, like, she's going to be the biggest tomboy in the world, 100%. I mean, all she ever talks about is wanting to skateboard and do all these other things. And, that's fun for me. That makes my dad heart happy. She's not going to be afraid to beat a little boy up someday. So that's what I'm excited about.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man, the home life is good. Can't complain, been through a lot in this world, and, not one to, compare stories with other people, but it builds you and makes you stronger and go through things. And it's a humbling life I've led to get to where I am, and I'm very, very lucky to be where I'm at. And we have a lot of cool friends, a lot of cool guests that'll be coming on, and it's just gonna be fun. That's just kind of me in a nutshell. I love flight medicine. I love being on the ambulance still, but I love being home with my kid. I mean, like, I just find this really good work-life balance now where I get to live my life. It's not every single day looking for hours, doing all this stuff. I had to grow up and learn how to manage finances and all these things and be okay with it.
Talking about flight medicine, how long have you had your critical care?
That's a good question. I think I'm going on 7 years now. 6 years, 6 or 7 years. This might be year 6, but it's been quite a while. I skipped the FPC, went to the critical care just for the fact that I was one of only, I think, 11 in the entire state of Idaho to have obtained it and passed the exam. And that was just more bragging rights.
Gotcha.
more than anything. Because I mean, like, I'll go get my flight paramedic license or a certificate this summer or something like that. But, it's just one of those things that, I can't believe it's been 6 years of, critical care, flight, and ground ambulance and transports. And now where I'm at, it's awesome.
What do you think about, throw you on the spot here,
Yeah.
I guess, difference in medicine as far as going from paramedic to flight medic or critical care?
Oh, dude, it is night and day different. 100%. I mean, like, we get into this, and I see this a lot, especially in new people, where they think that they're going to get in an airplane or a helicopter, and it's just going to be just an ambulance with wings or just an ambulance with rotor blades. Like, but it's not. It's so much more than that. It's critical thinking. It's ventilator management. It's acid-base management. It's full body system management, where in the paramedic world, I see this kind of quote. It's like, the EMS providers are there to keep them alive for a short duration of time. The hospital's there to keep them from dying for the duration of basically their care.
Mm-hmm.
And, that makes sense. But at the same time, we could up our game in the paramedic level a whole lot. I mean, like, we shouldn't just be there to put a Band-Aid on it. We should be there to get the process started before we get to the hospital. Don't have to make a diagnosis. We don't have to do these things. But the old days of throwing them in an ambulance, diesel bolus, getting them to the hospital shouldn't be a thing anymore. Scene time shouldn't be tracked, in my opinion. I mean, for TSEs, yes.
Yeah.
But your standard other things like your severe sepsis and all these other patients that are really actually critical and the movement matters, like, need to be, taking care of these patients more than anything. So, I feel like this is it's a really tough question because, I mean, there's so many factors that go into it, especially like protocol sets, state licensures, all these other things. Like when I was flying in Nevada, we couldn't do any invasive like decompressions of like the chest wall, where in Idaho we can.
Yeah.
Utah we can. So, I mean, it's like those little nuances, like where they still keep this tight grasp around you to limit what you can do when you can do it to better a patient, but by state mandate, you can't do anything. Like, that's a crappy place to be in, my man. Like,
no, I agree. It totally is. It's hard to combat that too.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you play a huge mental game of like, do I lose my licensure over doing something that I know I should do and can fix the situation?
Yeah.
Or does this patient, deteriorate more before we get to the hospital? I mean, like, there's so many little gray areas in it. That's why EMS is so hard for some people, because it's so gray all the time.
Correct.
But I guess back to the main question you asked is like, this world is so different because we're dealing with a majority of the time the sickest of the sick patients. There's a lot of EMS professionals out there that will stay on the ambulance for the rest of their life because they think that we don't do anything, but they have no idea what we do. Like they, and I may have been there at one point. I know I was probably there at one point. Like, you don't do the airways, you don't do this stuff. I don't give two shits about the airways and doing that. I mean, like, those things are fun to do, but where I really find my jam is that true nuts and bolts, critical care thinking of, blood pressure management, titration of meds, ventilator strategies to keep them oxygenating, ventilating well, and all of these things that encompass true patient care, not just putting that Band-Aid on it.
Absolutely. It's good to be, it's a different dynamic, right? Coming from the annoying person that's always dropping off patients, right? In the eyes of the hospital to, like, thank goodness you're here, like, get this patient out of here because we can't do it anymore. It's an interesting dynamic, right? But no, I think for me, the difference in level is crazy. Like, unfortunately, as in anything you do, like, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So being able to have some of those eye-opening, like, okay, this is what we do for these critical patients, treating different things like head bleeds and, like you talked about, the hypertension. I mean, how many medications do you carry that you treat hypertension with now? It's like,
there's a ton.
Before, I mean, maybe you gave someone some low pressure or labetalol, maybe a little nitro for that hypertensive crisis. But now actually having, like, strict guidelines for, okay, we need to keep these patients in these certain numbers. Is it's totally different.
Yeah.
So.
And then I think just the further understanding of what we can do with medications itself. I mean, like, as a ground paramedic, I never would have put 2 and 2 together that to get a pure alpha response in, like, an epinephrine infusion side of things. Like, when we're giving epi 1 to 1,000 for an anaphylactic to get that pure alpha response, we're giving, like, anywhere between 300 and 500 micrograms of epinephrine to get that pure alpha response.
Correct.
And then having to translate that into an infusion where, if you hit too much beta 1 or beta 2 and you get too much smooth muscle relaxation, you can do the opposite effect. I mean, like, and not knowing, like, how titratable that medication is and how much you actually have to give to get these responses out of these medications, and, like, having those true understandings is really a big thing that sets it apart as well. And, you can dive into cardiac stuff all we want and things like that, but I mean, like, there's so many things that go unknown until you really make that jump over.
Yes, there is.
What are your thoughts on, I think about this a lot, of admin or supervisory staff on ground ambulances being required to have an advanced certification?
Oh, I think it's a great idea. It's difficult. It's, obviously it's going to depend on your service.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I feel like that's why they're there, is to be able to show up on a scene and have that advanced knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I remember as a ground medic, like, I mean, I obviously you have your favorite supervisors, people you want to see show up.
Yeah.
And, one of my favorite, Jim Massey, who was one of my instructors, when I went to school. I mean, when Jimmy showed up, you knew it was going to be, like, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like, there was no question about it. It was like, okay, we're going to get through this. Jimmy's here. Life's good.
Yeah.
So, no, I absolutely think that they should have some sort of, I think, advanced knowledge in practice as well.
Yeah.
Would be awesome.
Yeah. I just, I run into this every now and again where, you see people get promoted and do all these things that we all look to do, which are great, but then they get gobbled up into, the admin role and all of these other things. And then it's like they show up on a scene and your paramedics 100 steps ahead of them, and they're trying to catch up to you when you're supposed to be the one there, providing that kind of comfort buffer level for these critically ill patients and helping these newer, younger paramedics out. And it's just kind of made that shift that doesn't seem to happen all the time anymore. And I mean, like, I can't speak for every agency, and I'm not speaking about any specific agency. It's just kind of, excuse me, as a national thing, is that something we should look at?
I think absolutely. Again, it's going to be...
That's going to be a hard sell.
Yeah.
But enough about me. enough about my life. Talked about my kid, girlfriend, the area I live in. Tell us about you.
Yeah.
What makes you you?
Well, let's kind of segue from what we were talking about there about that critical, having your leaders be that critical care and doing that kind of stuff. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I jumped over to the helicopter, right? I mean, I've had my critical care for, it's about 7 years, I think. 7, 8 years.
I think you were a year before,
maybe
year or
8,
two before
remember.
me.
So, went and got my flight medic, intending on going to fly someday, but also again just wanted to learn. And then the biggest reason was completely selfish, was seeing other people that said they're going and doing this critical care course and all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, you're not getting that before me. So getting out there and getting it
competitive,
done.
huh?
Always, definitely, right? And like we talked about, seeing that, it's great having Jimmy show up and knowing everything's okay, right? Watching some of my students, right?
Yeah.
Be on the helicopter and start taking care of patients, show up, and they know more than me now, and they're doing this stuff whoa, oh man, okay, it's time. I can't handle that. So yeah, it's very competitive. I would just want to know more, right? I want to be, the best. Not that I am. I absolutely know I'm not. But when I see somebody doing something great, okay, I want to know what they're doing so I can do the same thing.
Yeah.
I want that same knowledge base. I want that kind of skill set. So, but for me, anyway, grew up similar area, starting with my agency at very young age of 20.
Yeah.
Right. Not when I started, the insurance, they weren't going to let me get hired because I wasn't 21. So
that's funny.
They didn't want to cover me for insurance purposes. They didn't want me to drive the ambulance, stuff like that. So luckily my group fought for me. They were able to get me hired. And I was doing that while I was going through paramedic school. So I got hired as advanced EMT. So did my basic EMT out of high school. Initially when I went in, had no idea what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I thought about going into radiology. I was like, okay, I'll try that out. That seems cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the prereqs was either CNA or EMT. So definitely went the EMT route. I knew I didn't want to be a CNA.
No, thank you.
And that's when my met one of my mentors, great supervisor, like I talked about, Jim Massey, who I knew growing up, but I didn't actually know what he did.
Yeah.
So once went to that EMT program, I mean, he scooped me up and got me super interested, got me right into our quick response unit where I volunteered, as an EMT, and we'd do ride-alongs with him, and he was like, okay, yeah, this is cool stuff, going out and just riding with supervisor. Before I was hired, he got me way, way interested in it. So thanks a lot, Jimmy, for getting me into this. But
it's a blessing and a curse, right?
It is. So, no, I went to paramedic school. Like I said, I got hired when I was in medic school, and after medic school, got hired on, and have been with my company for 17 years. So, which this place, I mean, awesome protocols. Medical directors have been amazing.
Yep.
The stuff that we get to do, the high level medicine, high level care has been completely awesome.
Yeah.
So, I think as ground EMS, even where we're at, doing what a lot of only critical care agencies get to do. So has been insanely awesome. And we just have a great mix of everything. So you get some long distance transports. You get to go long distance scene calls as well.
Yeah.
That, you might be with somebody for a half an hour that you're actually treating them and taking care of them.
What's your longest transport you've had for a 911 call?
For a 911 call? At least an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have some areas that we go to that you're just driving an hour away. So those can
be hairy.
Those can be. And they're fun too. And a lot of times you get those calls, and that's when, weather's bad and you can't get a helicopter or anything like that. But
Yeah. I think my longest one was out in Three Creek, way down south.
Yep.
Like way out there, crossing the Salmon Dam in the middle of wintertime. Oh, God. It is terrible. But yeah, what do you do outside of work? Or no, I have another question because not only, I mean, like, our agency's badass that we work. I mean, we've got ground critical care, we've got flight critical care, fixed wing, rotor wing. And not only that, what about rope? What about rescue stuff? We have a huge ass canyon right out our back door.
We do.
I mean,
so that
486 feet deep. I don't even know how wide it is, but I mean, like, big enough to have a gigantic, like, almost suspension type bridge going over it. Like,
yeah, no. So the Snake River Canyon's awesome.
Yeah,
and because of that, where we're at, we get a lot of people who get stuck in stupid places.
Yeah.
All right. We have the Pine Bridge, which is one of the only 1 out of 2, I think, places in the USA that you can base jump off of.
Yeah,
right?
legally, right?
A structure that you can base jump off of. And the thing about here is, like, I mean, you can base jump 24/7, 365.
Happens all the time.
It's all on you. It doesn't matter. There's no permits. There's no get permission.
Yep.
I mean, we have base jumpers every day. So surprisingly, we don't see a lot of them. They do actually really good. So with that, people in the canyon, I mean, we have to be able to get to them.
Yeah.
So we're super specialized in that we get to do a lot of rope rescue. So we get this high angle rope rescue, and we have this truly elite team that gets to not only make patient access, somebody who's 200 feet down and stuck or hurt, whatever it is. Not only do we get to go do rope stuff, but now we're doing critical care on the side of a cliff.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I mean, from somebody who's not a part of that team, as an outsider looking in, like, it is super cool. I mean, like, it's one of those things that it's like, maybe I'll do it someday. But, like, you really have to have that true dedication going into it, because you guys are going all the time, training all the time. And you guys are doing competitions too still, or?
Yeah, we have, we're looking at a few, I think, for the next couple of years. But no, we've been, like I said, insanely blessed. And the fact that, our hospital-based EMS service allows us to go do canyon rescues and get in a helicopter and go fly 30 minutes away or 40 minutes away and do all this rescue stuff is insane.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't happen.
The fact that they will let us take members of the high angle rescue team in the helicopter to go fly throughout Idaho to help on some of these big scenes is insane. Like,
yeah, no, it totally is. It makes no sense, especially from a financial point. If you look at them, I mean, there's rescues. I don't even want to know how much money they spent on, getting people out of places, using multiple helicopters, shuffling multiple crews.
Yeah, extrication equipment, all sorts of stuff. I mean, like, I do feel lucky for where we work.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
like, just for the fact that, I think that they kind of view it as like a really good selling point. At the same time, like, we have these capabilities, we have these people that are specialty trained, like, they have the trust in us to be able to go out and do these things, which is really huge. And our admin has the trust in us as well. I mean, as much as every admin likes to look at numbers, they still like us going out and doing the best patient care possible in any situation.
Correct. Yeah, no, they're super supportive, and can't say enough about them.
Yeah.
But no, being able to do that stuff's awesome. And like I said, it does take a lot of time. Training. I mean,
every month,
multiple trainings every month. So you got to dedicate a lot of time and effort to it.
Yeah.
So appreciate my family who puts up with me, right? So wife, 2 kids, who are, I mean, absolutely love them, right? They push me, and they let me go do this stuff. So can't say enough about them. And as far as
what do you guys do what do you do outside of work? We kind of got a little bit of the glimpse of the inside of Isaac, but
hopefully not. Man. No, we no, for the most part, I mean, that's my favorite thing is just hanging out with family at home.
Yeah.
And doing whatever.
Yeah.
Playing Xbox.
Yep.
With the wife or the kids or all of us,
Yep.
right, doing that
I can
kind of
just see
stuff.
your wife
but
just standing there screaming at a TV, trying to play a game at some point.
no, maybe my son, not her. She's pretty chill. She's good, but she's chill.
Yeah.
But no, and then for us, family wise, I mean, typically if we're going to do anything, we've gone to Disney. I don't know how many times.
I can't even imagine
A
the
lot
amount of
times.
money that has been spent in. I mean, like, not so much lodging because you guys had all that family fun type stuff. But I mean, like, for a regular person, it'd be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
What? Not even close.
No?
No. No,
Okay.
you just got to know how to do Disney, man.
Yeah.
That's I'll do a podcast on that, how to do Disney properly. But
That'd probably be our best-selling podcast.
No, it's fun. I mean, yeah, sure, we spent money there, but we're not like huge go out and camp somewhere
Yeah.
type of people. So, you know, hey, I don't have an RV payment, so that's why.
Yeah.
That's easy way to look at it.
You don't have
right?
a camper taking up 90% of your garage in the wintertime like I do.
That's right. So, no, we love doing that kind of stuff. Probably taking a break for a little bit, working on doing something else. I don't know
Yeah.
what we're going to do yet. But,
Six Flags time.
Six Flags, no. But, no, Disneyland, Disney World's been awesome. I mean, the fact that we've gotten to go so many times it's been great.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I love about, like, our job is,
Mhm.
you know, work 2 or 3 days a week, depending on how things are going. So
Yeah.
you take a couple days off, and there you go. You got a week and a half off.
Yep.
So
It's awesome.
it
I mean,
is.
like, and especially with our schedule now. I mean, like, I didn't think I was going to love it at first until I, had my first good stretch of days off. And now I'm like, okay, I can see the
Oh, yeah.
upside to this right now. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So Disney Dad, all the things.
All the things.
Yep.
Like I said, worked for my ground agency for like 17 years. Been flying for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Did a big stint at our local college here, where got to teach with another one of my favorite people, Gordy Cox, who was my EMS instructor.
Yeah.
And I mean, Gordy is insanely awesome. Love the guy. When he left, he went to COAMPS, where, I mean, he was in charge of, making sure everybody's staying up on what they're supposed to, being in charge of accreditation for all the schools in the
Mm-hmm.
across the U.S. So, which I think is an important thing.
Accreditation's huge.
It is, and I think that, again, we can get into this. This can be its own podcast eventually, but I mean, we have to have programs that are accredited and making sure they're meeting requirements, stuff like that. That's the only way we're going to progress.
Yeah.
In our industry, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, watching some of those local paramedic schools that we had in Idaho that were like the 4-month accelerated paramedic programs fold was probably a good thing.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they were just paramedic mills at that time.
Yeah, which we don't need. I mean, I feel like, we'll always have a shortage. We'll always need people, but it doesn't mean that we
don't cut quality.
Exactly. Don't cut quality.
And
We need to push this industry forward as far as, look what nursing's done.
they're light years ahead of us.
They are.
In the grand scheme of like their recognition in the healthcare industry.
Recognition, and then the obvious factor of pay as well.
Pay,
right? So
yeah, and their ability for movement. I mean, like we go to and PA school, but I mean, like, they have PA, nurse practitioner, CRNA, all of these other subspecialties that they are able to transition into. I mean, like, it requires schooling, all these things, but once you're at some point in the top of the paramedic world, you're there.
Correct.
Until you move somewhere else or go to admin, which is not fun. But
yeah, I appreciate you admin guys. I don't want to be you. I don't always like you, but you nope, couldn't do it. So
as many times as I sit there and go, really? Like, this is what we're going to talk about right now. And then it actually works out in the end. It's like, it's a good thing. We have them there for a reason.
We do. And like I said, I appreciate that. It's not my role.
No.
But no, that's me pretty much. So
yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're doing? Like, why are we doing Standby for Tones? What's making us tick?
Yeah. So I've had had the idea for a long time
Yep.
and just hate EMS education.
Yep.
So I hated watching the same stupid videos and how they did, online learning and stuff like that was just terrible.
Yeah.
So, if I'm going to have to sit there and watch something and do something every year, like at least let me get something out of it.
Yeah.
I don't need the same thing that I learned in EMT school, right? I don't need to be taught that again. I do stuff. I do ACLS, BLS, PALS, NRP, all of that stuff. I get the majority of your basic kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? That we all do. So
The have to haves.
the
right?
have to haves,
Yeah.
which I get. I understand it. But like, give me something that's actually going to be beneficial to me that I can use to help my patients out. Right? I actually want to learn. Right?
Yeah.
Keep moving forward. Right? If you don't do that, then I don't know. I guess you know the people.
Yeah.
You know who it is who sits there who they're happy with exactly what they're doing. They're not going to advance.
Yep.
They're not going to learn more, move stuff forward. Right? They're comfortable. I don't like being comfortable.
No.
So
Yeah. No, I think that's huge. And, you hit on a lot of our good points there of like why we're, truly doing this. I think, we are able to bring some fun into good education. I mean, it's all evidence-based, all of the good things. And you hit really on one of the big points. I think one of the other big points that is huge for us too is I hate, because we don't make a lot of money, right? I mean, I'd like to say that at some point we'll make a lot of money, but we don't make a lot of money. I hate to see people getting taken advantage of to try and progress their field, especially when they're going to go from an EMS job on an ambulance and make less money to go fly, right?
Yep.
You're going to be required to pay out the butt for a critical care course, then testing fees. I mean, you're out $1,000 right there. Not many people just have $1,000 to go take a test, right? Yeah. And I think, where we're able to either break it down into payments, cost effectiveness and things like that is one of the biggest things, because if I wasn't able to find a, like a discount code or something like that, I don't know if I'd be here. I was broke for a long time. And then, being able to get into a class for super cheap, which I haven't seen yet again, was huge. I mean, because I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to shell out $500 for the class, then another $400 for a test.
Absolutely.
It blows my mind seeing some of the refresher courses, and even just for like EMT and paramedic, where they're like, EMT refresher, $500. It's like, you do realize that that person makes like $12 an hour, $12.50, because that's the minimum wage in Idaho right now. But
yeah,
they're not going to be able to cover a $500 recertification.
No, and that's if they're not working for a volunteer agency as well.
Exactly.
I mean, goodness.
Yeah, they have to be able to get their hours somehow, and it's got to be cost effective.
Yep.
And I think that's just kind of like one of the biggest driving factors, besides, getting our good education out for me, is hopefully being able to keep people in our industry for a little bit less.
Absolutely.
And, it's a pain in the butt. Don't get me wrong. This has been a massive headache some days, but I love every second of it.
Oh, for sure. No, we spent ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah. Accreditation just in general makes me want to bash my head into a desk.
Absolutely.
But, it's just part of it though. I mean, we chose to do this. It's fun. And we hope we get to bring this to all the people.
Yeah. And just kind of getting back to where we, how we became Standby for Tones, Like I said, I had my idea that the things I wanted to do with stuff. And then when you got the educator job, after you had to deal with all of that nonsense, I think you called me up and had an idea, and it tied right into where I was going with it. And was like, all right, well, let's sit down and have a conversation.
Yep.
So
what was it, a week later after I texted you, and we're sitting in an office with our kind of business develop guy, and good old Tad, he does a lot for us. And, you know, and sitting there filling out, you know, mapping boards and project ideas and all this stuff. And here it is. Like,
it only took 3 years later, but hey, it's okay.
3 years of quality, though, is the biggest thing.
It has been. It's hard to.
That first year was like, are we actually going to do this? Or but year 2 and 3 was where we hit it home.
It is. I mean, we have a book. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Never thought I'd say that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Published authors, and, you know,
wow.
it's huge for us.
It is.
And it sells good. I mean, like, we're getting sales almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think people are starting to enjoy it. I haven't seen any reviews on it yet, but I know there's a couple misspelled words, but
hopefully not.
Can't be perfect in everything. So,
no, it's been really good.
Yeah. On that note, should we do a little education?
Absolutely, we should.
Yeah.
Today, we want to cover something that's, I think, one of our favorite topics right now. One of the things that we love talking about, and it's really kind of changed the way that we do medicine for a lot of people, is we're talking about minute volume today.
Yes, minute volume, minute ventilation, all things to encompass a good ventilator strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Had a great conversation with a buddy of mine the other day talking about this same thing. He's gone through some of the same courses we went through.
Yeah.
And his exact words were like, how the hell did they let us do vent management like without this class, without this information?
Yeah.
Like, why did they do that to us? How come this was never brought to us before?
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing as well, is making sure we get this information out there. So we're talking ventilator strategies, and the best way to explain it, I guess, the best way that I look at it is the way that we're going to approach each patient, approach each, how we set up the ventilator, how we do stuff for each patient isn't just based on 6 to 8 mLs per kilogram.
Yeah.
Right?
As far 12 and 500 one more time.
Right. Right. But I actually want to look at what is going on with my patient and what are their metabolic needs.
Yeah. The metabolic demand is that's a big initial step to this, because kind of have to start approaching these patients like, you know, like we were taught in paramedic school, like the sick or not sick, or acute or not acute type thing, right? Yeah. Like you walk in, be like, sick or not sick. Like, but we want to take that kind of a step higher and start looking at it as like, are they big sick? Are they medium sick? Are they little sick?
Yeah. Right.
And just lump it into those kind of 3 categories. And then, you know, the higher the metabolic demand, the more minute ventilation we're going to need to have to support what their body is already doing without putting them in an acid-based derangement.
Correct.
Which is a whole nother part of the lecture. Like, we'll get to that at some point, of how these two correlate. But like right now, we want to focus on how we're going to not kill our patients with a ventilator.
Absolutely.
And it's like you said, it's one of those things that we were never taught. We were taught ventilator murder for the most part.
For sure.
I mean, like, we had loaded handguns called ventilators, putting them on patients for the longest time. And we always wondered why, you know, we'd get to the hospital, they'd be even more sick, or their acid base would be terrible, and just all of these other things, until we started learning about minute ventilation, minute volume. And, you know, the biggest thing to remember is that a normal patient sitting here is breathing about 90 cc's to, you know, probably about 120 cc's per kilo of ideal body weight in minute ventilation.
Yep.
And I mean, like, that's a normal average everyday range. God, I can't talk today.
You're good. Yeah.
So normal
that's
everyday
you and
range.
me, right? That's you and me sitting here doing a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as we get sicker, we can tailor this up to, you know, start at 100, go to 120, go to 130, go to 140, 150 as they progressively get sicker and start to fall in some of like the overdose categories, the metabolic derangements, the knocking on death's door type thing.
Yeah.
And like your post-arrest, I mean, you're in some of these post-arrest in kids and things like that, you can be hitting upwards of 200 cc's per kilo of ideal body weight per minute.
Yeah, and in kids alone, I mean, kids are their own category.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, for the most part, if I'm getting a kid, I'm starting at 200.
Yeah.
So, and then neos, I mean, you may be up to 300.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be those are one-off cases when you get into those situations, but I mean, it's not out of the realm of the possibility, right?
No, absolutely not.
And especially with neos, if they're like not a sick neo and they're already in that 250, 300 range, and then you have a super sick neo and you're having to push, you know, these minute ventilations with respiratory rates of 60 or more. I mean, like just when we were in our PICU, like there was a kid in there on a vent with a respiratory rate of 60 to 100. It's just like, good Lord. I mean, they're getting small volumes, but I mean, like their minute ventilation was massive. It was like 8 to 9 liters for a newborn. It's just like
that's crazy.
Like it's insane, and that's our normal resting adult minute ventilation, and we don't find a way to translate these things.
So, I'll put math on the board.
Yeah,
doing this stuff. But if you're listening, so when we're talking about minute ventilation, right, we're talking again how much volume we're moving in a minute. So when we say that, you know, they're at 100, we're going again off their ideal body weight. So 100 mLs times their 90. Yeah. Actually, that's pretty high for ideal body weight. We'll say 70, right? Remember, ideal body weight is how big our lungs are going to be, because it doesn't matter if you're. It goes off height, right?
Yep.
If you're 5,
that's why I love the Hamilton. I can put their height in, and it gives me my ideal body weight.
If you're 5'6" and your ideal body weight is, I don't know, 65 kilos, right? That's what you should be. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're 400 pounds, or if you're in that range, right? That's your chest.
Your lungs don't grow.
Your lungs aren't going to get bigger, right? So ideal body weight's important with this. We're not just going off what their regular kilograms is, but off of ideal body weight. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply that ideal body weight and then times whatever we think that metabolic demand is for these patients. So again, normal is about 100.
So you want to walk them through the math, or?
Yeah, for sure. Let's keep going through the math. So if they're, what are we doing for ideal? Let's just make it easy. Let's go 70.
Yep, do a 70.
So 70, again, times 100, right? That's going to be 7,000.
Yep.
So you're going to have 7
liters.
7 liters a minute, right? That's your ideal. That's your minute volume that you're going to look for. So we have to now match our ventilation to meet that demand.
Yep.
So easy way to do it for us. Another strategy, another thing that we need to remember is we don't just adjust rate.
Yeah.
Don't just immediately move their respiratory rate to go higher. First thing we need to do is use the whole lung. So for me, I'm going to typically go 8 mLs per kilogram for my tidal volumes.
Yeah, which I love. I mean, like, it takes the guesswork out of it, right? I mean, like, if you just start at 8, it falls on every single patient's from neo to adults tidal volume range.
Correct.
Right.
So if I have 8 times 70,
which is 560,
which is whatever your calculator
560.
says, 560.
560.
Right. So now I can just divide that minute volume that I'm shooting for. So that's 7,000
divided by 560. That gives you a respiratory rate of about 12.5 to 13. I usually round up to 13.
So now I have my respiratory rate, right? I've gotten my tidal volume. I know what my 8 mLs per kilo is, 560. Perfect. If we're shooting for that 7,000 minute volume, then again, now I have my respiratory rate. I don't have to guess or say, I wonder what the rate should be.
Yeah.
What the volume should be. We take some of the guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, like, it's one of those things too. I mean, like, you know, we would usually come up with that, you know, idea, or that ideal tidal volume more than anything. We'd always start tidal volume first. And then we'd be like, oh, normal person breathes about 20 times a minute. And I mean, like, be completely off.
Yeah.
And then they would have a minute ventilation of far more than they actually needed. And we'd drive their CO2 down to like 5. And I mean, like, in some situations, like our DKAs and things like that, that's a little bit of a different story. But I mean, like,
correct.
You know, on the everyday run of the mill thing, like, you know, we were doing more harm than good by just guessing a tidal volume and plugging in a rate and hitting go.
Correct. And then in the way we were taught was look at their end tidal, right?
Yeah.
We know 35 to 45, that's normal rate. So So what do is you start them on something, and then you just start adjusting that rate until you get that tidal volume end tidal CO2 that you wanted, right? But it never works out. For me, it was always a change. You're changing it nonstop, and it's one of the things that I refer to as chasing the carrot.
Okay.
Right. So, all right. I mean, picture again. You have the horse or whatever, you carrot on a string in front of them so that they're always moving forward. Right. That's what when I'm only focused on that ETCO2 on those end tidal numbers, I can never achieve it or get it exactly where I want it if I'm just adjusting my rate or just focused on that end tidal. And again, that's chasing the carrot to me. So being able to, okay, now instead of just looking at the end tidal, but look at what's going on with your patient. How sick are they? Right? I mean, how many times do you put somebody on 14 breaths a minute and whatever 6 mLs per kilo or 8 mLs per kilo, right? But they're over breathing the vent the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's like, hit them with more sedation.
It's not the answer always.
It's not always the answer. Like maybe they're breathing a little bit faster because they need more minute volume.
Yeah.
Right. So starting with that tidal volume, right? Making sure that you're using all of the lung is how we're going to get there first.
Yeah. It really is. It's a huge change in what we know is normal, right? And I think you hit the nail on the head with every point there. I mean, like, we got into this realm of just like, we always change our rate first. And it's like, no, we need to change our volumes first. Start effectively ventilating these patients appropriately and allowing them to have their CO2 exchange, allowing them to onload and offload oxygen, allowing their bodies to sit in and, take some of the stress off of them so they stop overbreathing that ventilator, so they get more comfortable into it. And that's the whole basis behind this. Not only that it, really helps with our metabolic derangements, but I mean, like, it really keeps our patients in a place where they are comfortable. And a comfortable ventilator patient makes me happy. Yeah, I mean, like, optimizing that entire lung is going to be huge because, I mean, like, we're always taught these numbers more than anything. I mean, like, they're like, never go over this number for this and never go over this number for this. I mean, it's usually like 35 for your peak pressures and 30 for your plats, right?
Correct.
And, when we get into this change of using minute ventilation, you tend to see more, not higher pressures, but something that would be more normal. Like, we feel safe in a realm of, like, getting a peak of 14 and a plat of 8. It's just like, how adequately are we ventilating these patients at that point?
Not at all.
And then we start getting into this realm and we start seeing pressures in the 20s, and then our plats are in the 18s, and your patient's oxygenating and all these other things. We have to remember that, I mean, like, you're not going to hurt rigid structures. Like, your peak airway pressures is measuring your rigid airway structure. So if you have to go above that 35 to get their ventilation up, I mean, it's not going to hurt the rigid airway structures as long as your plateau pressures, your lung parenchymal pressures are within normal limits. So, like, there's so many things that we don't get taught in basic ventilator fundamentals. And it's one of the classes that sits on the back of my mind that we do that I would love to redo again.
Oh, absolutely.
Just because it's changed so much in the last, year and a half, more than anything, about 2 years. And, the explanations that we're able to give are a little bit better too. So, I mean, like, the math is there. You can't bullshit math, right? I mean,
correct.
If you need to, really get these patients tuned in, say we have like our DKA patients, one of the least favorable patient to intubate, right?
Correct.
Like, you've got your asthmatics and your DKA patients that we don't like to intubate, but you have to do it both to both of them at some point.
Yes, you do.
So, like, your DKA patient, they're not breathing 25 times a minute just for funsies.
No.
Like,
no, they're not.
Like, they're breathing that much for a reason.
Yeah, it's keeping them alive.
Yeah, they are compensating for their severe metabolic acidosis. And what did we do in the old days going into these patients?
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it either, but these are learning
no,
points.
They are absolutely right. No, we've seen it. And, you get somebody who intubates that DKA patient, and then now you're breathing back to your 12 and 500, right? You're just going to, again, help move these patients to the grave, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I mean, like 12 and 500 gives you a minute ventilation of 6 liters a minute. That is the basic normal. When these patients on their own are probably breathing, 11, 13, up 13, to 18 liters a minute, and we take that and cut that in half, I mean, that's ventilator murder.
Yep. It's just like your sepsis patient with volume, right? When you're like, oh, let's give them a fluid bolus, and you give them 250, like that's not a fluid bolus.
No.
Right? These guys need 30 mLs per kilo.
Yeah.
So it's almost the same line of thought with your ventilator here.
Yeah.
They need that minute volume because they have such a high metabolic demand. So look at what that metabolic demand is for your patient.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if it's, and you can use this for everyone. That's what I love, is it doesn't matter if it's a trauma, an overdose, the sepsis, the cardiac arrest, whatever it is.
It's like my last ventilator patient, a 13-year-old post-arrest.
Mm-hmm.
I walked in, and I was just like, he's not getting enough minute ventilation.
Yeah.
Like, just right off the bat. And I looked at my partner. I was just like, hey, like, I want to start at 150 cc's per kilo of ideal body weight and see where that takes us. Because it's still titratable, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I'm going to find that middle ground, and then I can go up on my minute ventilation as needed. And it's just like, we get in there, underventilated, still adequately oxygenating, but underventilated. ABG's not great. Change him over, get him squared away on our vent, let him sit there for a little bit, get him into this realm of like, a CO2 like right at 35. And we get him to the receiving facility, and his ABG is, like almost a full point better. And, his PaO2 is responding well. Like, all of these things are starting to look a little bit better just by us walking in and saying, hey, I'm going to put him on 150 cc's per kilo of ideal body weight. I'm going to start at 8 cc's per kilo for my tidal volume, and here's my rate, and let him sit. And we made a couple little adjustments because, as we drove his CO2 a little bit low at one point, but I mean, like, it's just one of those things where it's just like, okay, I'm going to back off on my volume just a little bit.
Yep.
And, as soon as we did that, it was like, I think we dropped it by like maybe 10 cc's on our pressure control, basically. And I think I went 1 point down on my pressure control, and it was responded right back. Yep. And I was just like, this is easy. Like,
yeah. And keep going. Sorry.
And we were able to really fine tune him in to the point of where, we're still worried about that ventilator because it's the most important thing right there. But I mean, like, we were able to focus on our hemodynamics a little bit better. And, hemodynamics played a lot into that too, because, we have a post-arrest with a blood pressure of 60. And it's just like, as soon as we started getting his blood pressures back up a little bit and getting up to where it needed to be, I mean, that CO2 started to climb. There's a whole host of things that happened very quickly.
Correct.
But because we had a really good ventilator strategy, we didn't have to worry about it too much because we were already set up for success from the time we walked into that door.
Yep. No, absolutely. That's one of my biggest heartaches with pick on some RTs here.
Yeah.
Is like hospital RTs. And I know they have their own protocols and their things they do, and picking up a patient out of the ICU is a lot different than picking up a patient out of the ER.
Yeah.
Vent strategies in the ICU are, I feel like, way different than they are in that emergency ER setting. Get them on the vent, make sure they're breathing, and move on, right? So for me, one of my biggest heartaches is every time I go to the ER is seeing that 12 and 400 or 12 and 500.
Yep. Vent alarms going off like crazy.
Well, that, and it's like, okay, yeah, they're set at 12 and 500 or whatever it is, but, the patient's sedated, but breathing on their own, and their respiratory rate's 26, and, they're doing 560s and 600s. It's like, you're underventilating this patient. Like, Why are you making them work?
Yeah.
Stop making them work harder.
Yeah.
On
The
your
reason they
vent.
failed is because they were working harder already.
Right.
Like now they're going to work twice as hard
Yeah.
to combat ventilator settings.
So let's support them. So, I mean, one of my favorite things to do is I know we're going to be taking this patient out and they're going to be putting them on a vent. It's like, yeah, I'm going to run this vent first.
Yeah.
And again, look at what's going on with your patient. So
why don't we recap that math? Or do you want to walk through an entire patient on how we'd walk in and set up? Give you a little scenario here.
Yeah.
We got time, or you want to just
no,
recap
we have time.
the math? Yeah.
So we'll kind of recap the math and go through just a ventilator patient.
Ventilator patient as seen through our eyes.
Through our eyes,
Yes.
right?
Don't forget to please follow your local protocols, but
again, yes.
yeah. But I mean, like, these are the things that we have been trained and studied on, and all of these different strategies. So what do you want to do? What do you want a head trauma? You want a DKA? You want an asthma? You want, sepsis is always a good starting point for this.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. Okay. So with this ventilator strategy, like you talked about, chasing the carrot, right? You used to always, adjust your rate, and you watch that CO2 change up and down and up and down and up and down. You can't get it right. One of my favorite things about this is when I start thinking minute ventilation, when I start from the very beginning with my patient, whatever patient it is, figure out, okay, they're super sick, they're kind of sick, whatever it is, dial in that, figure out that minute ventilation that I think they're going to need, get it going. And it's amazing to me that now that end title is exactly where I would want it to be.
Yeah.
And I haven't even thought about the end title as far as like that's something that I'm trying to achieve. But I try to achieve that minute ventilation. I get that going. Okay, perfect. We're in this minute ventilation range. They seem like they're doing okay. Their sats are good. Look, and their end title is usually right within that normal limit. So
yeah, it's amazing. Like,
yeah,
how much better it is than what we used to do. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, like, we were taught a terrible way to ventilate patients.
We were.
And, it's just one of those things that as time changes, people are resistant to it because, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. But if we can get this through, people's minds and, howing to do this, it's going to be huge.
It is. And it truly will. When you see it work, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It makes life so much easier. You're not fighting the vent the whole time. You're not fighting sedation the whole time. I mean, we always fight sedation, but it's less about the sedation now than it was just a good vent strategy.
Yeah.
So,
continue to take these things because, once, like Isaac said, once you see it actually work, like the amount of adjustments you're going to start making on ventilators is going to drastically lower, in my humble opinion, because I mean, like, just because I had to make a single setting change on, my post-arrest kid, like, that wasn't a bad thing.
No.
That was just me like, okay, I overshot my minute ventilation guideline here a little bit, or my minute ventilation goal. Let's back it down by 10 cc's per kilo.
Yep.
And voila, we were right where we needed to be, especially for a head patient, where it's so vital to keep that CO2 in that normal range more than anything. So
correct.
It really enables us to tailor what we need to do to our patients.
Yeah, and it's just like we talked about, it's great. The strategy is completely different.
Yeah.
And focus more on, we talked about those pips and those P-plats. Like when I watch my P-plat, like if I'm above 25,
start to get nervous.
When I start to get to 25, then I start, okay, let's reevaluate.
Yeah.
But, below that, I'm not worried.
Yeah. Because, I mean, that's when you can kind of change strategies. Like, is the high volume, lower rate strategy not working just because your P-plats are high? Because then really what you can do is you can just take your minute ventilation, divide it by a more normal respiratory rate, and get a lower tidal volume but a higher rate. I mean, it's going to increase your dead space. We can combat that to a degree, especially, I mean, like with the Hamilton's a little bit better because, I mean, it encompasses a lot of that dead space because of where the flow sensor's at.
Correct.
But I mean, like, if you have to change strategies, it's that easy. I mean, you still use the same components, but now you're just taking that, oh, my P-plats are high? Cool. I'm going to shoot for a respiratory rate of 16 to get me my same minute ventilation, and it's going to calculate your tidal volume for you.
Yep.
Like, it's that easy.
It's that easy.
I mean, like, you just swap two numbers, two different places, and it's, you know, then you can watch your P-plats come down. You just got to make sure your I to E ratios are set correctly.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
I mean, like, we'll get into a full-on ventilator podcast, but yeah, where you can get into your I to E ratios.
Yeah. Total cycle time is life, man. Like,
it is.
It really, once you understand total cycle time, you understand ventilator far better than you ever imagined you could.
Yep.
And if you can encompass both of these strategies together, like, it's huge.
It is.
Like, I time and E time as parts and total cycle time all combined together, it's massive. But let's get into a case study here. We're just going to focus on our minute ventilation for this one. So, Isaac, you're going to go on a scene call via helicopter.
Okay.
Okay. You're going to go in for a 65-year-old female that is, drowsy, hitting that non-responsiveness, general malaise, been sick for a couple days. So you guys get on scene. The EMS guys, kind of pull up on the same time as you do because, it's a long distance away. They had some travel time. So you guys go in and tackle this patient together a little bit, and you find your patient a little bit more on the drowsy side. Let's say, hitting that GCS of 7, 8, and you look at her and she is just dry. Her heart rate is in the 150s, let's say 140s, 150s.
Okay.
And her blood pressure's trash. Like straight trash. I mean, it's like 60 over knocking on death's doorstep. And what do you guys need to do? What's going to be your first steps on this? And please say blood sugar.
Blood sugar. Just kidding.
Blood sugar is high.
Blood sugar's high.
Yeah.
Not
high. We'll say like 180.
Okay.
Yep. Not DKA high.
Not DKA high. Gotcha. No, obviously we're going to look at her hemodynamics.
Yeah.
Right. That pressure of 60 is no bien, right? That's in one of those H bombs, that hypotension. So I'm gonna want to know, like, what has she had for volume?
Yeah.
What's volume at?
Yeah, nothing. You
Nothing.
guys got there at the same time as ground agency.
Cool. So I mean, we're gonna start heavy on the volume to start with.
Okay.
Right.
So you guys get her tanked up, get her hemodynamics a little bit better, but she's still not responding well.
Yep.
And husband states that she has a history of UTIs, and has been trying to deal with one for the last probably about week. Has been taking her medications, but started to feel better and stopped taking her antibiotics because that's what people do these days.
That's
right?
what they do.
And so you guys electively RSI her. What is your strategy going into this, say, for a 30-minute flight of patient care? Your hemodynamics are fixed. All I want to hear is ventilator strategy.
Yeah. Well, and on that hemodynamics too. I mean, remember we got her tanked up, but we're also, if we're talking RSI, we're doing stuff. We want to make sure, again, I've got push dose epi. I've got stuff to keep those hemodynamics where they should be, right? If I'm going to be doing sedatives and paralytic stuff like that, I'm going to be knocking out catecholamine, so I want to make sure that we're not going to tank her again. So, but besides that, if we get her successfully RSI'd and everything like that, ventilator strategy, that's where I'm looking, okay, sepsis. Right?
Yep.
So we're going sepsis. I'm just going to start with, I don't know, I'm pick something. See what she is, see what her stats were. So if I say, let's say we do 130.
Yeah.
Start at 130 mLs per kilo as far as minute volume goes.
Okay.
Right. So how tall was she?
Let's do a tall one. Do her 6 foot.
6 foot tall, man.
Yeah.
So ideal body weight, 6 foot tall, is about 73 kilos.
Okay.
Looking at my awesome little chart that I have. All right. So if I'm going minute volume for her, let's say if I start at 8, I'm looking at 580 mLs per kilo.
Okay.
Right. So 580 mLs per kilo, minute volume at 130 is going to be, calculator, 73 times 130. It's 9,490.
Yeah. probably just round it up to 9,500, 9.5 liters a minute.
9.5. Okay. All I'm going to do is divide that by my 580, right? And I've got a rate of 16. So now I have that stuff out of the way. I know 8 mLs per kilo. I know my rate.
It's done.
It's done.
It's done.
I'm going to set that.
Yeah. And as she gets more comfortable, you know, you do your 15-minute ventilator reassessments, right? And you get in there. Her CO2, say, is, 26. What are you going to do?
If it's 26, I'm going to think, you know what? Maybe I'm hitting a little high on this.
Yeah.
Right? So I can start with, if I like my rate, if she's not over-breathing, paralytics have worn off or not, probably not in 30 minutes if we're doing an RSI, but, maybe I back that down to 15 on my rate and maybe go down a little bit on my tidal volume. Maybe I'm going to go to 7 mLs per kilo.
Yeah.
Right? So 73 times 7. All right, let's go down to 510.
Yeah.
510 and went down to 15. All right, so now we're back down. Now we're down to 76.
Yeah.
So,
not a huge jump, but
not a huge
enough
jump
to, maybe bring her end tidal back up a little bit closer to that 35 range, what we're trying to hit.
Yeah, or I leave her rate the same, and again, I just come down on that volume just a little bit.
Yeah.
And see how that goes.
Yeah.
Right? So, no, it's a great way to just manage your patients. It's so much easier than it just takes the guessing out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So let's just recap the math a little bit. We've been talking for a long time, and let these guys have their day. So the biggest things that we want you to take home is the math. Walk in, big sick, medium sick, little sick. Pick a minute volume strategy between 90 and 200 for your adults. Anywhere between 90 and, depending on how sick your kids can be, up to 300 cc's per kilo of ideal body weight. Usually in the realm of 100, 120, 130, 40, 50, then kind of upwards from there. And you're going to multiply your ideal body weight by your chosen cc's per kilo. So say they're, 70 and you want 100. So 70 kilos ideal body weight times 100 is a minute ventilation of 7 liters. Divide, or then you get your tidal volume. 8 times 70 is, why can't I do math in my head right now?
560.
Is 560. I knew that already. So I do my 7,000 divided by my 560. And that'll give me a rate of 12-ish.
12 and a half.
12 and a half. 12 and a half, 13. So it's super easy. Takes 30 seconds to set up. The other thing that I do, pre-flight, if I know I'm going to be intubating somebody, I'm going to set up multiple ventilator strategies on a piece of tape on my pant leg or something like that. I'll have it set up for 120, 130, 140 or something like that. That way I can make those adjustments that much quicker.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, same thing with your tidal volume, right? Do a tidal volume of 6, do a tidal volume of 8.
Yeah.
So that you have that range.
Yeah.
You know that you're falling within that range. That should be normal for them. You're not going to be running into high pressure, stuff like that. So just have that, so then you're able to, again, just that much more quickly make changes to your ventilator. So.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, that's it. That is our Star Wars Reverse podcast back to lesson 1. And it was fun, man.
Oh, it was fun.
Yeah. I enjoy these things. And I hope people take things away and learn from it more than anything.
Absolutely. And don't forget to check us out. Find all of our stuff. You can find, like I said, our books on Amazon. Check out www.standbyfortones.com or SB4T.com.
Yep, they all work.
They both work. And we look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. And don't forget, stand by for tones.
As always, we like to stand by for those tones. So
that's right.
Thank you guys. Enjoy your day.